Good morning. My name is Jeremiah Best. I'm from New York Agriculture in the Classroom. And joining us from New York Agriculture in the Classroom, we have Sarah Peavy running technical. I'm the agricultural educator for the state of New York, and we have some special guests today to talk about the profession of beef, all things beef. We're looking at both sides of the beef cycle, from raising beef to production of beef. So thank you for joining us as part of the Top Cut Beef Contest with the theme of global street food. So we want to start by kicking it off to Ms. Catherine Stager, who is the representative from the New York Beef Council. And she's going to talk a little bit about what the Beef Council does and introduce both of our special guests today.
Good morning, everyone. We are really excited to partner with Ag in the Classroom on this project and to kind of beef up our Top Cuts contest by providing these educational webinars to dive a little bit deeper into the different sections of the projects that as you are exploring and working through developing your marketing plan. So as Jeremiah mentioned, I work for the New York Beef Council, and we are a nonprofit funded by beef and dairy farmers. Every time an animal is sold, $1 is due to the beef checkoff, and those dollars are used to promote and educate on beef. And that is done by connecting consumers, food bloggers, registered dietitian, and chefs with farmers and the beef industry so that they can better understand all that beef has to offer. The beef industry is a very large and influential industry in the United States. Here in New York, we are mostly a dairy state, but we do have over 7,000 beef farms. So we do have a lot of beef production, and even more importantly, or more influential, are the number of consumers that we have. Here in New York State, we have over 19.8 million consumers, about 9 million of them just down in New York City. And one of our special guests here today is from that area. So they're going to talk about how we get beef into the different restaurants and retailers, grocery stores, to make sure that people have high quality and delicious beef. So with that, I am first going to thank this project is made possible by Iowa Beef Industry Council. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of the population here in New York, while Iowa has a lot of beef cows. And so they actually send some of their beef checkoff dollars to support projects like this to make it possible for students throughout New York to understand and connect with beef. So we're really thankful for that. I'm going to introduce our first speaker here this morning. We're really excited to have Emma Latterly, who's going to be joining us, and she's from right here in central New York, outside of Syracuse, and she lives and works on her family's Red Angus beef farm. And so she's going to talk to you about what it means to be a beef farmer and some of the careers that she interacts with, or some of the people that help support her as a beef farmer so that she can raise those beautiful, healthy, and wonderful animals. So with that, I will turn it over to Emma.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here to share a little bit about what we do as farmers, but more so the people we work with that kind of help our whole operation run. So as Catherine said, our farm is in Marcellus, Shepherd Settlement Farm. We are a family-run farm. My parents, Mike and Linda Foster, own the farm, and my husband and I help out with the day-to-day operations. As farmers, that's our main job is with day-to-day operations, getting cows fed, taking care of them, and then doing the extra work of crops and anything that kind of comes down the line. We raise Red Angus cattle. Our top focus is genetics, so we do, and I'll mention this a little later on again, we focus on genetic improvement, so we try to have top-of-the-line Red Angus animals that we sell across the country to better people's herds. And this eventually ends in the beef market because most of the animals we sell are to better beef herds so they can raise really great cattle that feed out really nicely. So that's our main focus. We do raise some animals for beef, just for like our local sale or to feed our families. And then in addition to the animals, we raise soybeans, corn, hay, and straw. For more of a cash crop, the hay does go to feed the cows when they're not grazing. And then the corn, we chop some of that for corn silage, which is just an additional feed for the cows. So that's just a quick overview of what we do. And I wanted to just jump right into the professionals we work with that really keep us running. So the first grouping I thought of was animal care. As a farmer, the top priority is taking care of the animals, because without them, you don't have your business, you don't have your livelihood anymore. So we work with a variety of people that help us do that. So first is a veterinarian. And so our veterinarian, one of our most important things with that relationship is he does do routine work. He's probably out twice a year for routine things. He does pregnancy checks, which is like with an ultrasound to see how far along a cow is after being bred. And then he does certain vaccines and health things that only veterinarians can do. In addition to that, he's available for emergencies, which unfortunately we have those. And whenever we have an emergency, we want quick care because we don't want any of our animals to suffer. So any emergency we have is usually related to calving, and luckily our vet gets out there really quick. I mentioned this because one thing that I know veterinarians consider when they're going into this profession is, especially for large animals and working with farms, is you need flexibility, because a lot of the times we're calling at 8 p.m. or 4 a.m. or on a Sunday. And if you don't want to be bothered on the weekend or when, you're not working, sometimes it's not the best idea, or maybe, a clinic setting is better. So that's the reason I mentioned that. And so next is an embryologist we work with. It's just a specialized veterinarian. So our embryologist specializes in reproductive health. He does, one thing we do is, I guess my quick explanation is, we invest in mama cows that are, the top of the genetics in the Red Angus. And then we flush them. So we take their eggs out and we fertilize them, and then we implant them in surrogate cows, which we call recipients. So these surrogate cows have Red Angus calves, which they think is their own calf, and they raise them. So we do have, if you're ever to visit, you notice we have 50% Red Angus, and then 50%, there's some black-hided animals. There's red-hided with white faces. We just select other beef cows based on their traits to be a good mom. So the embryologist does all of that work for us because it's super specialized. You can kind of see in the picture in the background, that's my mom. She's assisting him putting embryos in. So there's cows behind my mom, and you can see that they're not Red Angus, they're black-hided. And so he's putting Red Angus embryos into them. It's very similar to how you'd breed a cow with like artificial insemination. And then hopefully that pregnancy sticks and they will have the Red Angus calves. So that's what the embryologist does. It's a really in-depth process, and he needs to really know the whole reproductive system and exactly how it works and the timing of everything, because it's super specific and it's not a cheap process to go through. So we really want to make sure we have the best of the best doing it, and he is super specialized. So we really love the embryologist we have right now. He's actually through a company called Transova, which is nationwide. They have satellites all over the country, and that's their specialty, is reproductive health. So he, again, is going to fall into that category for education, is obviously veterinary school, which is going to be in addition to, your bachelor, your first 4 years of college. And going into that, it's like you're going to need a love for the animals. You're going to need the flexibility that I mentioned, kind of the drive and motivation. Not every case we run into is cut and dry. When we have a sick calf, it's not always pneumonia, or it's not always, a textbook definition. Sometimes the vet needs to take a step back and do some research or call some colleagues. So it's something, you're always learning, you're always progressing. So that's more of a specialized degree. And then the next two I'm going to touch on are, I would say, more of like you could apprentice or a trade to learn these. So the next two mentioned are artificial insemination technician. So these are people who are trained to artificially inseminate cattle. It's a specialized training. You take some colleges offer courses on it, some companies that offer courses on it too. So anyone can take the classes and courses and get the practice. And then you can be employed either privately or by different companies. And these people come and their sole purpose or sole job is to breed the cow. So we catch the cow or heifer in heat, which means she's ready to be bred. We call the AI tech and they come when they're scheduled to breed the cow. So it's a quick interaction, but it's a really specialized skill set and one none of us have. So we need to hire someone for it. Lastly is a hoof trimmer. We don't use a hoof trimmer routinely, but this is a really, when you see the work done, you realize it's a really specialized talent. But it's definitely something I would say is like more of an apprenticeship type thing. I'm sure there's educational programs for it as well. But we mainly use it for cases of like where we need veterinary care. If there's an abscess or a cow seems to be limping or broken toe, etc. Just mainly because of the way we feed and the way our animals are housed, we don't do routine because their feet are not needing that like trimming, they're not having overgrowth or different kinds of growth. So different farms are going to have different protocol regarding that. Okay, I think I'm ready for the next slide.
So Emma,
yeah.
This is Jeremiah, and I want to ask a quick question. I know many of our
Sure.
students and teachers would be asking. So as a farmer, I have all these needs on my farm for outside professionals. How do I get in touch with these people? Do they just show up? Do I send out a flare and say help? Do I Google? How do farmers create this network so that when I have a need, these people arrive?
Right. So a lot of it is kind of networking amongst your neighborhood farmers. We often utilize, like we have, larger farms nearby. And I mean, just recently I was in need of a hoof trimmer and I hadn't had a hoof trimmer out and I, of course, didn't have the phone number. So I just called around and was like, who's great, who can come out quickly. So just networking amongst people I know. And sometimes it's just kind of sitting down and doing the research, especially for veterinary care, and calling the vets, or you can find and asking the questions like, are you going to come when I call at 4 a.m.? Are you going to, help me deliver the calf? Are you going to do X, Y, and Z to kind of gauge if they're the right fit? So it does take a little to find the professionals, but I wouldn't say it's difficult, especially if you're in a ag or farm community.
So you'd say farming is definitely a tight-knit community that y'all rely on each other, neighbor to neighbor,
definitely.
farm to farm. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a great part of it. So next, I just touched on like sales people a little bit. I'm sure Susie's going to talk about sales too, much better than I will. These are just a couple of the people we deal with frequently throughout the year. So I just put seed, but this is also inclusive of, when we plant a crop, we have to fertilize the ground, and then we have to apply chemicals for like weed prevention. So I kind of grouped, seeds kind of an all inclusive in my mind, so I didn't really clarify that. But so a seed salesperson we deal with yearly to buy our seed for whatever crop we need to plant, and they're super knowledgeable on the seed, like the new varieties and what might work best for our fields and our type of land. So they're super helpful to us. We work with them a lot. And same with the fertilizer and chemicals. We obviously want to apply the right amount of each of those for environmental reasons and for yield reasons, we want to get, the correct yield for our crop. So the salespeople normally come with a wealth of knowledge that they, I think a lot of it is learned from either growing up on a farm or just learned from working with farmers in the industry. We also deal with equipment salespeople, whether it's tractors and any type of farm implements, if we're buying new or trading in, etc. So we do deal with them quite frequently, it seems. And then lastly is feed and mineral sales. We, I would say feed and mineral sales, is, at least for us, is like a bigger industry. We get calls a lot about trying new minerals or new feeds. And we have a pretty simple feed program that just works for us because we're not feeding, cows to be sent to a harvest. So we have different goals than some people in our area. So we work with just a couple salespeople for feed. But one thing I want to touch on with salespeople is, you definitely don't need an ag degree to work in ag sales. It wouldn't hinder you at all because you'd have obviously more ag information. But I think for sales, it's just a lot of personality and skill set, especially now as technology gets better. I would say I don't get a lot of phone calls. I get a lot of texts and emails, which is fine. I text and email, so I don't mind that. But it's something I think to consider too, is, that professionalism over text and email. Even I struggle with it sometimes. And it's just a definite, personality skill set, I think, is almost like one of the top things when you're in sales. And then obviously you want the knowledge to back it up. But just being able to talk to kind of any type of person, especially with farmers, a lot of farmers are 65 and older. So you're going to be dealing with an older generation of people. So that's one thing I always think about with sales, is more of the personality.
Before we want to go on, I want to say thank you for our guests that joined us. We're working with Miss Emma Latterly from a farm just outside of Syracuse and Marcellus, and she's just quickly sharing. We got a couple more minutes with Emma, and then we'll go on with Susie, and she's sharing about what her farm does, but also those specialists. So we discussed the day-to-day specialists, such as veterinarians, hoof trimmers, anything having to do with the breeding of the calves. She does work with Red Angus on her farm. We talked about the sales, so we're going to spend a couple minutes. We have about 10 minutes to go through, or 2 minutes to go through the specialized consultants. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in chat, and we'll definitely address those at the end of the end of our session. So Emma, specialized consultants, what is that? And could you quickly go through who these people are and what they do to benefit your herd?
Yeah, definitely. So these I grouped together because I would say these are more of a specialized for education wise. All of these, you're going to go to school for something very specific. You're going to get a bachelor's degree in a specific topic. So that's why I put these together. We do work with all of these in different aspects. Agronomists, that's all about your crop health. If you need any special help that your salespeople couldn't help with. A nutrient management planner. Certain farms have to follow regulations as far as what they do with their manure. So this person would help you figure that out, how to safely spread or store your manure. Nutritionists, so they formulate the feed you need. They, go back to the science and figure out exactly what the animal needs, either to gain weight or to maintain weight, or just, for reproduction, etc. Financial and legal, something, again, it's more of a specialized thing, just helping make financial decisions, helping to pay off debt. And then legally, it's just liability, any owner transfer, buying new land, selling land, anything like that. You definitely want a professional involved. And then lastly is educational. Like Catherine from the Beef Council, they offer education to us farmers about up and coming events or things we can be involved with, or connecting us with consumers is a really big one. The Beef Council does. And then there's like Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they help us too by providing education for us, whether it's new certifications or just new speakers for us to learn more about what's going on in the industry.
So if I don't want to necessarily be a bee farmer, I think you showed us that there are many, many, many possible careers to be involved in agriculture. So I don't want to have to push some manure around the field and do that portion of it, or be out in the weather. But you know, I could be on the legal side. I could be on the medical side. So there are a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, yes, there's so many opportunities to be involved with agriculture and farmers without being the farmer.
And then we have about 2 minutes, sale
Okay.
management. So we have
Real
our,
quick. I don't want to take up too much time babbling on.
no, that's not a problem. We have our calves. They've grown. They've filled out.
Yep.
So what do we do with them? What's next?
Yep. So our main focus is they're going to go to a sale. Our bulls are going to be sold when they're a year old, and that's what you see up in that top corner. And then the heifer you see, they're about 7-8 months old when they're sold. So they live with just on their mom drinking milk. So they're 6 months old. They come off, get some grain, and then we're selling them. So things that are involved with this is sale management. We send them to sales that, like, normally someone might contact us and be like, hey, you know, we're having a heifer sale wherever, like we're going to one in South Dakota in November. So we're like, okay, we'll sell there. And then they arrange the magazine. They make sure there's pictures. They pull everything together. So, and there's also usually like a graphic designer to do all that, because it's kind of a specialized skill set that at least a lot of us don't seem to have. So the graphic designer and a professional photography is huge in getting the pictures of anything. But, you know, cattle, they need to look a certain way, be standing a certain way. So you can see all the pictures you see on the screen. They all pretty much are standing, looking the same way. So that's super important, just to flaunt them, show off what they have to offer for us. So there was a couple things that, just a couple more kind of different jobs that you might not necessarily relate to farming or agriculture, but they're super important to breeders or people like us, especially that are selling.
Well, thank you so much for taking us down, getting the production. We see a couple more there: farm mechanics, equipment operators, truck drivers. You want to work on diesel engines, I'm sure you have plenty of work on a farm. So thank you for taking us down the road to get that cattle ready for market. So Catherine is going to introduce our next guest, who's going to take us on what do we do after we get it to market.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Emma, for giving that brief overview on the production end of things. There are a lot of hands that are responsible for helping to support farmers as they raise their beef cattle. And I'm really excited to have Suzanne Strausberger-Reedy with us today. She is another very important aspect of the beef industry. So at the Beef Council, we're lucky enough to work with farms all across the state, but we're also able to work with beef processors and marketers and butchers and chefs who take that delicious beef that farmers work really hard to raise and produce a high quality product, and they pick up where the farmer leaves off to then market that product. So Suzanne comes from a long family history in the meat business, and she is going to give us an overview of what it is she does for the industry and some of the other careers that she works with on this processing and marketing end of the beef life cycle. So Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very happy to be here. So my name is Suzanne Strausberger, and I am the 5th generation in our family meat business. We are wholesalers. We're located in New York and New Jersey now. And I decided when I was 3 years old that I wanted to be in the family business. I asked my father what Papa did and what he did, and they said they worked together in the family meat business. And right then and there, I decided that's what I was going to do. I've had just about every job in the plant, and I've met some amazing people along the way who have taught me so much, and I've made so many great friends. But during my time here in the meat business, I was lucky enough to work with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and get my MBA, which is called your Master of Beef Advocacy. So I also consider part of my job is to promote meat in a positive way and inform people about all the miscommunication about beef. But I have traveled the world and I have tried meat from all different continents. And here in America, we have the best, most nutritious, delicious, safe meat. And I just want to thank the people that grow our food. They are amazing, and we are so lucky and grateful. So I love my job. I feel blessed, especially right now, what's going on in the world. People need to eat. Beef is full of nutrition, real meat. You have zinc, vitamin B, it's a protein, it's filling, it's satisfying, it helps build muscle. So I can't say enough great things about it. Right now, I am the CEO of my family company, and my advice is that it's really just about making the right decisions and about people trusting you. But it was not an easy road. I will tell you, I started at the bottom, and I'm excited to share with you some of the things that I've done to get here. So just to begin, I want to share with how we get our meat. We get our meat from the Midwest. The meat is already processed. It's in primals. It's like ribs and loins and rounds. And we get that shipped in by tractor trailer, refrigerated from the Midwest. So they come to us every week, every day. Our building is refrigerated. We're a USDA building. This is my white butcher coat that I have to wear when I run around the building. And of course I wear a hairnet. And you know, right now you have to be safe. You have to think of others. You have to wear a mask. Everything has to be very clean, and it takes a lot of people to make it happen. So we have a COO who's in charge of operations, and we have a controller that oversees our business and our finance and our papers. We have a bookkeeper that keeps track of everything. We have someone who does our collections, because we sell mostly restaurants and grocery stores. We also sell online. And I am also fortunate enough to have another brand of meat called Susie Sirloin. And I wear a cowboy hat in honor of all the ranchers in America that I respect and love and appreciate. When you first walk in our building, we have a receptionist that really oversees and takes care of all of us. She goes through the emails and takes all the phone calls. And then when you enter the warehouse, we have someone in charge of shipping and receiving. It's very important. You have to keep great records. Everything, again, I can't emphasize enough, has to be safe and refrigerated. Of course, we have to have the butchers and a processing room where we process the meat and cut it down into steaks. There's different grades of meat. We have prime, choice, and select. And we really think of all the meat as being very valuable, and Every customer wants their meat different. They might want it cut by the inch, by the ounce. They might want it fresh. They might want it cryovac. They might want it for retail in the store. But I think that selling meat is very cool. And people especially love this cut. It's called a tomahawk. It's very fun to take pictures for Instagram, and it's delicious. I mean, what we produce is absolutely mouth-watering, and the way we produce it here in America is a miracle every day. So, of course, we need salespeople to sell it. We're fortunate enough to sell ground beef and meatloaf mix. Again, different packaging. We sell hamburgers to the grocery stores, but in doing so, we need people to buy the meat right. It's a market, it's a commodity. We also need someone to buy dry goods and packaging and you know, take care of equipment and scales. We need a mechanic, salespeople to sell the meat. We do a lot of different labels, which to me is fun. I get to be a little bit artistic. I'm involved in that. You know, we get to make brochures and do a lot of social media. And I mean, I got to take the photographs for these. And the butchers, we have many butchers. Some of them cut bone-in meat, some of them cut boneless meat. We have the grind room that I showed you that makes the hamburgers. We have a quality control person that oversees and checks everything. And we work in a USDA meat facility. And, you know, I also have to deal with lawyers, accountants, bankers, insurance. So at the end of the day, it takes a lot of people to run a successful business.
Susie, I have a question. You mentioned social media when we think about farming. Are you telling me that you're out taking all your social media and doing all your social media, or as somebody who wants to go in agriculture, can I be what we call an influencer for a company like yours? Do you hire somebody to do that for marketing, or is that something that you're always doing all the time? Can I have fun doing social media with a beef producer?
Absolutely. We do hire people. We have hired people to help us with our website and launching out newsletters. And I'm one of those people that if you go on our Instagram account, Strasburger Steaks or Susie Sirloin, I actually take pictures of my meals, which is very exciting because I am the lucky one that gets to go out and try them at restaurants or grill them on the weekends.
So is there a job as a taste tester in your field? Can I be somebody that is able to experience your steak so that I can market that better?
Yes, absolutely. I've been to a lot of taste tests in restaurants. It's very stressful, and you know, you obviously want to win the account, but you also want to have fun doing it. And I'm trying to show you that even though this business is very serious, it's not glamorous, but you know, you want to have fun, you want to be colorful. You know, like I said, I wear my cowboy hat. It's part of my logo. And Strasburger Meats now. I just made some new aprons, and Strasburger is in the name. We were absolutely destined to be in the meat business, and we're using that as something fun in marketing. And I'm also on some committees that I get to travel all over the country and meet other owners of meat companies, a lot of family-owned meat companies, and we're very proud of that. That here in America, we have companies and ranches that are 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. We have great stories to tell. And again, America produces the best, most delicious meat. It has to do with the grain and the corn, and we do it better than anyone else. And I'm here to share that with everyone.
So,
Awesome.
Suzanne, we've had an
So
opportunity
we have a
to
couple
work
of questions. Catherine, if we have any questions from anybody who is participating, if you want us to share those questions with our guests, please feel free to put them in chat.
I was going to ask you, Suzanne, if you could talk briefly, because we've had an opportunity to work together where you've actually taught me a little bit about meat cutting and that butcher side of things, right? That is really an art to understand how to take those big pieces of meat and learn how to turn them into those strip steaks that you showed. So how would you train somebody who wanted to work in your facility?
So, you have to be very strong, first of all, to cut meat. But we also have equipment now that can cut meat. And you have to be trained. It's not easy. It takes a very long time. When I first got into the meat business, I was trained by German apprentices who my grandfather hired that worked with my father and trained me. Because if you think about it, every cut of meat is different. It has a different texture. It's a different size, a different weight. It looks completely different. So when I first started and I worked in the cooler, weighing meat, touching meat, smelling meat, feeling meat, that it made me a better salesperson because I, knew how many pounds were in a box or what the average weight is. And I got the best education working in the processing room and working with the butchers and learning about packaging and what we do now that, in a butcher shop, ground beef will last 2 or 3 days. But what we do now with packaging, it can last 3 weeks. And this packaging and technology is not going away. It's here to stay, and it's only made us better.
Well, Emma, I have a quick question for you. How do I get into being a beef farmer? I mean, do I just walk up to a field, jump on the tractor and call it mine and say I can start raising cows? If I wanted to get into the beef industry, from your side of the industry, what are the first steps that I would need outside of just taking over the family farm?
Right. I think there's a bunch of different ways depending, if you were an adult looking at it or if you were like a younger, young adult. There's organizations you can get involved with, like Catherine's or like through Extension to learn about how to get involved. Or there's always just the opportunity. We've started a lot of farms in the area. Some people come to us and they're like, we have a barn and we have pasture and we want the cows. So we supply them with the cattle. Other people are like, well, we want to buy a cow, but we don't have a farm. So we'll house the animal for them, kind of like you board maybe like a horse. So similar, but it gets you your foot in the door because we know it's not easy to start being a farmer in a lot of cases. But there is, I know even through Cornell, there's a lot of programs for beginner farmers, women farming, anything like that. So just kind of exploring all the resources available and just talking to people and figuring out the best avenue.
And why Red Angus? Why not Black Angus or some other type of cow? Why did your farm decide to grow Red Angus?
So we always laugh. We chose Red Angus because we just got like sucked into it. My dad spent too much money to get us out. But we chose red. So an Angus, a black Angus and a red Angus, they're the same. They're just different hide. So two black animals could produce a red animal. The reds overall seem to have better temperament, so they're easier for us to handle and deal with. And that can just be, varying reasons. The Angus seem to be a little less docile. So we obviously want something calm we can work with. And additionally, we found the specialized market for the Red Angus. And again, like we don't do a lot of beef work, but we do hear that, there's different reasoning, and Susie may be able to explain it better, that people that feedlots are buying red-hided animals versus black-hided animals due to what they see as more profitable for them. So we found that, we were most profitable with the reds, and we just loved the docility and the nice look of them, something different than all the black-hided animals you see.
So Susie, difference between the Anguses from your side, if you could just quickly touch that question. But I have a couple questions I wanted to ask you. First, dried meat. That's a pretty fascinating process. Can you after answering that question about Red Angus, can you give us like a 20-second synopsis of this science of doing aged meat? And then also, if I wanted to start a beef selling business and I wanted to be able to get out there and have great steaks and create that atmosphere that your company is creating, what would I need to do?
Okay, so there are different programs out there. There is Angus, CAB Angus, there's Wagyu, there's natural, there's grass-fed, and I believe in all of them, and it's really up to the consumer and what they want and what makes them feel good about eating meat. So it's up to them, and I'm more than happy to produce and package and cut the steaks that they want and what they demand. And here in America, we have so many options. We have such an abundance of food. As far as aged meat, I'm so happy you asked me that question, because my family was one of the first people to put up a dry aging room. So what a dry aging room does is it's like a box that is closed off. We actually have an alarm on ours. It has a lot to do with the temperature of the meat, and it has to do with, it's called dry aging because it takes the water out of the meat. Meat is mostly made up of water. So you're taking the water out of the meat. It has to do with the humidity. So we have a humidity alarm and a temperature alarm, and every aging room is different, and it brings out the flavor. It makes it more tender, but the outside of the meat, the outside bark of the meat, you have to cut off and remove the aged part of the meat. Everything we put in the aging room is bone in. And I would have to say it's made so many restaurants so famous, and it's delicious. It's a different flavor point, but it's very popular, and people all over the world are copying us. So, and
Awesome.
I highly recommend getting into the meat business. And my best advice is to work for another company first and learn from them and ask them a lot of questions and see if you like it, and start off small and baby steps. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about making the right decisions.
So one last question for both of you. What is your advice for students exploring what career to pursue, be it in life or in agriculture? What is some advice you can leave for our students that will help them, just kind of help them down a path?
So I always ask people what they wanted to be when they were a little kid, and if that's still what they wanted to be. I also ask them, you know, who do they like or admire with the people around them? Is there anyone whose job that you would like or you would like to learn more of? So I always recommend that they ask a lot of questions, maybe go in the beginning, just to observe what it is so they know what they're getting into, and to really try it. And, you know, any job in the beginning is not easy. It's very difficult, and it takes months and months and months to really understand it and to really feel like you're fitting in. So my advice is ask a lot of questions, don't give up, really give it your best shot. And if you're not happy, then move on. But in my family, our father taught us that you learn every day. And you know, he would say, if you're not learning at your desk, go back in the processing room in the cooler and learn more about meat. For instance, my father, he really didn't cut steaks in his career. It was mostly hanging carcass and primals. And I'll never forget the day he cut a short loin that was, you know, a New York strip and a T-bone and a porterhouse. And he was like amazed, like, this is what they're doing in the restaurants and the butcher shops. And we can do this now. And this is what the people demand. And all the millions and millions of pounds of meat, he was just so proud to keep learning after all these years. So keep learning, don't give up, and it's okay if you give other people credit, and get a lot of sleep. That's my advice.
I love that point about being able to shift. So in life, you got to be able to shift and look for those new opportunities. Emma, I want to throw it over to you. What would you suggest for students, be it in a career in agriculture or any of their careers as they're going through the educational process? What would you suggest as a professional, some advice that you can leave them?
I would definitely mimic what Susie said. I think getting those like shadowing experiences is huge, because you might not know. I mean, you might have an idea of what someone does, but until you have like that boots on the ground experience or like internship type experience, it's really, I think, hard to understand exactly like maybe what you want to do, or you had the wrong idea, or there's something, kind of a segues to something else. So just that, keep learning, keep trying new opportunities. And don't be afraid to, even my personal experience was ag school, being a teacher, back to ag school. Did it take me an extra year of school? Yeah. I was 20 years old though. It's like, who cares? Take your time, take all the classes and learn, and really investigate what you want to do. And, work hard when you get if you find your job. And if you're in your job for a year or two and you're like, this isn't the right fit, it's like, go back to school or go find an internship somewhere else, and just kind of keep progressing until you find, that true fit.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We want to give a quick shout out to Lafayette Schools and our other guests for joining us. Also, Susie Sirloin, Susie Strasburger from Strasburger Steaks, Miss Emma Latterly from Shepherd Settlement Farms. Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of Catherine Stager, New York Beef Council, Sarah Peavy and Jeremiah Best from New York Agricultural Classroom. best of luck in the Top Cut. Please reach out to us if you need any help or support. And feel free to join us on the 14th. We are doing a virtual field trip of one of our local beef farms with 2 veterans who came back and started their own beef farm and has built it from pretty much nothing. So thank you again for joining us and have an awesome day.
Thank you.
Well,